Welcome to the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. I'm Melisa Liberman, a fellow IC and business coach. On this podcast, I teach you to become a consistently booked independent consultant without becoming a pushy salesperson or working 24/7. If I can do it, you can too. Listen on to find out how. Welcome to episode 235 of the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. This is Melisa Liberman, and today I am excited to talk with you about the topic of using a sprint to fill your consulting pipeline. We've talked about this concept here and there on the podcast in the past, but today I wanted to dedicate this entire episode to this topic so that you could really understand how this works and how to apply it to your own business so that you can fill or refill your consulting business pipeline, especially here if you're listening in the real time and we're coming toward the end of the year, right? It's September when you're listening to this, but the end of the year is quickly approaching. So I want to make sure that you have this tool to leverage in your toolbox to fill your consulting pipeline. So we're going to go into detail about using a sprint. Before we do, a couple of quick updates. A lot of you have reached out. Thank you so much. I shared on a few episodes ago that my family's generational cattle ranch has been threatened with a wildfire. It's, I think, the fourth or fifth largest in Colorado state history. I'm happy to report that the fire is out. It did a lot of damage to their fencing and grazing where the cattle are in the wintertime. But luckily it didn't burn down any of their houses on the ranch that my parents live in and other family members live in. So that's good news. The not so great news is now this has turned into a lot of mudslides, when it rains. So just an ongoing ordeal, but they're super resilient people. So luckily they're doing well. Okay, so thank you for checking in on that for those of you who have asked. The other huge update is that the Growth Atlas products I've been talking about on this podcast are now on Amazon. So amazing. So the planner, the quarterly business planner that's built exactly around a lot of the frameworks that I teach on this podcast and to my clients who are also independent consultants. It is customized to the type of business that you're running, will help you to grow your business over the course of 90 days at a time, to focus on the priorities that matter most to you growing your business and help you stay on track. There's also a mindset journal that goes along with it that is called the 100-Day Business Brain. And that one helps you to, alongside the planner to really cultivate the mindset. We talked a couple episodes ago about the $1 Million Mindset. Helps you to cultivate the mindset of the most successful business owners, all centered around 6 particular mindsets that you can leverage to figure out where your mind is in each of those 6 by doing the pre-assessment and then applying the awareness work and transformation work over the 100 days to get yourself to the place where your mindset is aligned to the goals that you want to achieve and set yourself up for success. And then there's also a simple project management desk pad that helps you to plan and manage your projects on a simple one-pager that you can just keep top of mind. And the thing I love about that is it's not just about what you need to do, but it's also the way you setting up the way you need to think to set yourself up for success again. So anyway, those are the 3 products and a little bit about them. They are now on Amazon to purchase. Amazing. What a journey. I will do another episode about this specifically and what it is like to release physical products. But in the meantime, I just wanted to give you that update. So to go to Amazon, search the term Growth Atlas, and then those 3 products should appear and you can buy one or all of them or none of them, whatever you feel best supports you. Okay. So with that, let's now talk about sprints. And we're going to dive into this episode in detail to help you implement a sprint in your business to fill or refill your consulting business pipeline. I want to encourage you to stay to the end of the episode because I'm going to share with you a very exciting way to put today's episode into action. I can't wait for you to hear about it. So, with that, a little teaser, let's talk about the agenda and then we'll get into the content itself. So, the agenda for today, first, we're going to go over what is a lead gen sprint. Let's make sure we're on the same page. But what I mean by a sprint, if you're in the tech world, you've probably heard this term before. How does it apply to lead generation? Then we're going to talk about why. Why do the sprint? I'll give you actually three examples, and then we will talk about 5 simple prerequisites. I want to do a But Melissa segment because there may be some things that you're thinking about that why this wouldn't work for you. And I really want to dive into those to help you overcome those. And then we'll wrap up with the ways to that next step I want to encourage you to leverage to put this episode into action. Okay, so with that, let's talk about what is a lead gen sprint. Very simply put, it is a burst of focused effort, typically 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more, but typically 4 to 6 weeks, where you've got a focused effort on filling your pipeline. And that's it. Very, very simple. This is not a long sustained, this is my new lead generation process. This is a burst of focused effort for a defined period of time that is intended to help you fill your consulting business pipeline with high quality leads and work that you want to take on. So that then gives us a good reason. Why do we want to do this, right? Ultimately, it's really simple to fill your pipeline. However, I want to give you a couple of examples too, or a couple, encourage you to think about this also about the byproducts of a sprint. So, the goal ultimately of the sprint is to fill your pipeline, again, with high quality leads. But the byproduct can be equally as important, which is you accelerating your learnings about your own process for lead generation. So, you've got something that's more repeatable when you decide to scale it down and not keep sprinting. You accelerate those learnings about what works and what doesn't, about the way you describe what you do as a consultant, about why a potential client would care about that, about the specific description of who you work best with and what kinds of clients you're looking for and what situations they're in where they need you. Accelerating all those learnings is incredibly valuable. The other byproduct of a lead gen sprint is what I'll call the micro skills that you develop. And those micro skills are things like how do you turn a conversation into an opportunity? How do you uncover an opportunity in a conversation and turn it into a next step? Instead of getting stuck in the friend zone, for example, or you're having all these conversations that are really not going anywhere and it feels so frustrating and a waste of time. You don't want that. I don't want that for you. By doing a lead generation sprint, you have the ability to improve those micro skills where you're getting really good at creating conversations with anyone or everyone, people that are warm in your network who you know, people that you would love to meet because they're a target client, and others that you get connected to. You get really good at creating conversations and you get really good at uncovering opportunities and creating a next step during those conversations. Not all of them, of course, but the majority of them. So that's why you would want to take on a lead gen sprint to fill your pipeline and to experience those byproducts to help you improve the way that you're running your business and the skills that you have from a business development perspective. So let's give you some examples of what this means. So we talked about what is a sprint and why do it. So let me give you some very tangible examples. And these come from 3 of my clients. You've heard them on the podcast before. You've heard Abby, who is in episode 172. You've heard Ellie, who is in episode 224. And you heard Maddie, who's in episode 214. Matty, Maddie. Those 3 individuals have, and I think others as well that you've heard on the podcast, other clients you've heard on the podcast have shared their experiences with sprints. But these 3 really stand out because they went into more detail about how this approach worked for them and what they learned from it. So essentially, between the 3 of them, it all looked very similar. They each had around 2 to 5 calls per day, give or take, and went into these conversations again with the goal of just talking to as many people as possible, not really prejudging if they're the right person to talk to, whoever they were talking to, if that was the right person or not really prejudging, is this a buyer or not, a decision maker or not. It's really with the goal of having as many conversations as possible and treating those as breadcrumbs to get to the next step, whether it's one of those specific conversations that they had turning into an opportunity, or potentially or I should say, getting introduced to someone else that might be an opportunity, and following those breadcrumbs as a result. So, from a tangible result perspective, you heard on those episodes things like, for Abby, I think it turned into 3 clients over the course of those 40 days when she had no pipeline to start with. And she even had to turn away one of those clients or refer them to another consultant. And you heard Ellie share that she created a 7-figure pipeline during the course of a couple of sprints, essentially over 3 or 4 months. So, this is the type of tangible result that is something that's possible for you as a consultant. And that's why I want to share these with you, because these are other consultants, and you might think, well, they're unicorns or they have something special. And they are very special. They're amazing humans, but you are too. And you also have unique qualities to bring to the table. They did not come to the process with business development experience. They learned it as they went. And that is likely the situation that you're in. And it's possible for you too. The other thing that I want to share from a results perspective, again, we talked about the tangible side, but we also have the intangible side, the process and the skills, the soft skills that you build along the way. And Maddie shared some of this on his episode as well, 214, where that number of conversations helps lead to clarity, helps you to further fine tune your niche, for example, the ideal clients that you want to work for and that you want to be known for helping. It helps you to clarify the way that you create those conversations and what you're looking for. It helps you to get really good at turning conversations into opportunities, like we were just talking about. And it helps you to accelerate the process of having a foundational lead generation process that you can ramp up and down depending on, where you're at with respect to capacity and utilization. So those are 3 very specific examples. Again, you've heard them on the podcast in the past if you've listened to those episodes. If not, you can go back and listen to those. We'll put the links to all 3 episodes in the show notes. But this gives you 3 very tangible examples of how this is possible for an independent consultant who are very brand new to the process, very brand new to consulting, or maybe you're not new to consulting. You've been doing this for a long time and you want to have more control over your business. This is the fastest, most effective way to get there. Okay, let's now talk about what this actually looks like. What does a sprint look like? And I want to share with you, we've already talked about it in the most simplistic terms, right? It's incredibly simplistic. You're creating calls with as many people as possible in a set period of time. Usually, I would recommend 3 to 6 weeks, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, or you could do an accelerated sprint over a couple of weeks, but really picking a focused amount of time where you can create, 30, 40, 50 calls under your belt for the reasons we've already talked about. That's what the sprint looks like. Now, how do you make that happen? I'll share with you 3 components that I think are really important. First, the prerequisites. So, the 5 simple prerequisites can be really valuable to have in place before you start a sprint are: number 1, having a target list. Who are you going to talk to? And you can leverage the 5C process that I teach my clients. The letter C is in cat. The 5C process. You can look in, if you don't know what that is, I'll give you a way to figure out what it is at the end of the episode. And then also you can find it in my book, which is Grow Your Consulting Business, 14-step roadmap to make your independent consultant goals a reality. A mouthful. Okay, so we want to start with a target list. Again, we're not worried about ranking these or overly assessing them and trying to figure out who's a buyer and who's not and all of that. We're just starting off with a list. If the goal is to talk to 50 people in the course of 30 days, then you need a list of probably 80 in order to, some people aren't going to reply back to you, even if it's your best friend, potentially. Some people will not reply back to you. And I can't tell you how often that surprises consultants, especially when your former boss that you had a great relationship with and they don't reply. It's so puzzling and sometimes, create some self doubt. Don't worry about that. Just know that it happens to everyone. So if the goal is to talk to 50 people in the course of, 30 days, a month, then I would make a list of 80 people, so that you've got that as your prerequisite. The other thing that you want to do is set a goal. You want to set a goal. I cannot insist enough that you set a goal. So often I talk to independent consultants and ask them, what's their revenue goal? They don't have one. What's your goal for the next client? What would you love for it to look like? Don't know, don't have it. The reason why is because we don't want to be disappointed. But how are you going to measure the success of the sprint and the time investment you're putting in place if you don't set a goal? So get better at not feeling bad when you don't hit the goal, or tying your emotional state to the goal, whether you hit it or exceed it or not, and just set a goal. The goal might sound like, I'm going to talk to 50 people in the next 30 days, and I am going to generate 10 leads from that. Simple. It just gives you a hypothesis against which to start executing, right? You might end up creating 12 leads or 7, but at least we're starting somewhere. Then you also want to block off time, of course, right? I mean, that's obvious, but you physically want to block off time so that you're not trying to do this, when you can squeeze it in, because that will never happen. This is a priority. This is you thinking of yourself as a client, and therefore you're not going to miss a meeting with yourself. So put it on your calendar and make sure that you have time dedicated, 3 or 4, even 5 days out of the week for that period of time for your sprint. You also want to set up an online calendar if you don't have one already, like a Calendly. And then it would be really valuable to have a one pager. So if you don't have one yet, you can go to the ictoolkit.com. There's a ton of tools there for independent consultants, including a template for a one pager. Go create one for yourself. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't overperfect it. Get it to a MVP status, minimum viable product. And then, of course, you can always adjust it as you go. You can always adjust it after you have a conversation and someone says, send me a one pager. I want to, be able to just look in writing about what you do. You'll have that ready to go. Okay. So those are the prerequisites. Now, the thing I wanted to address is what you might be arguing about in your mind about why this won't work for you or why it's not the right time. And I really want to address this because it's incredibly important. Don't wait until next year to do this. Don't wait until February when your current project is about to end. Don't wait. And I want to address what I hear as the 4 most common objections, let's say, to implementing a sprint in your business so that you can really think about this. Does this apply to you or not? So the first is, I don't have time. Most of us say this in some form or fashion. I don't have time. Even if you might be fully utilized right now and really busy with client work. You might be thinking, I don't have time. Or you might not be fully utilized, but you've got other things going on and you might be thinking, I don't have time. But the truth is that you can find 3 hours a week. The truth is you can find 3 to 5 hours per week. One of those hours is, on a Sunday evening, just prepping, working on your list. It doesn't have to be pressure filled. It doesn't have to be, something you dread. It can be, just creating an ongoing list and adding 10 more people to it every Sunday. And that's not a big ask, right? That might take you 20, 30 minutes. And then you want to just be blocking off that time that we talked about. I know for sure you can find an hour a day or 3 to 5 hours per week to have calls for the sprint and to accomplish a goal of meeting with 30 people in 30 days or 40 people in 30 days or 50 people in 30 days. You can do this if you put some intentionality around it, some organization around it, and a priority around it. Again, you've got to go back to, why am I doing this? And for you, the answer might be, I want to fill my pipeline. The other answer might be, I don't want to experience feast or famine anymore. I really want to rip the band aid off and create a pipeline, really give my pipeline an infusion so that I don't have a feast or famine cycle when my current engagement ends. Those are the types of things that you want to be thinking about. The next thing that I hear oftentimes for consultants when they're concerned about does this strategy work for them is I should be more strategic about who I'm talking to. I should talk only to decision makers. I should be really smart about this. I should not waste my time talking to other people that aren't decision makers. And what I want to encourage you and push back on you about is that, of course, it can be most effective to talk to decision makers. That's not always true, quite frankly. Of course, that can be true. But it's also true that you never know where a conversation might go. You've heard these examples, and it may even happen to yourself where you're talking to your neighbor. Your neighbor actually, even though you've lived there for 10 years, has no idea what you do. And then you find out that they're an executive at some company that would engage consultants. Or you find out that they own a business where what you do would be incredibly valuable. Or you find out that their brother in law is a potential decision maker and the type of ideal client you would love to work with. You never know where a conversation might go. So, trying to prejudge and strong arm this process most of the time ends up exhausting you, taking up a lot of unneeded energy, and also is quite frankly just an excuse to keep you from having the conversations. When you think I better, really analyze this and figure out who I'm going to talk to, it's really just an elegant way of procrastination and avoidance, right? Another thing that I often hear is I'll do this as soon as fill in the blank. I've only got a month left on my current engagement and I need to fill my pipeline. Or I'll do this as soon as this really, big push on the engagement is completed. Or I'll do this as soon as my vacation is over or whatever it is. This upcoming vacation next month is over, right? I want to push back on you on this. You're a business owner. Lead generation is your core responsibility as a business owner. Of course, you have other core responsibilities like client delivery and your personal goals. We're not trying to throw any work-life balance out of the window, but at the same time, lead generation is one of the core responsibilities of being a business owner. So, this is something that should be a focus for you on almost every day of the week when you're not on vacation. So, why not do a sprint so that you could rip off the band aid and really get those quick results for yourself so that not only can you see the results in your pipeline, but also in the building of clarity and the soft skills we talked about a bit ago. And then finally, another question I often get is how will I know this sprint will work? How will I know this will work? Listen, no one knows if it's going to work or not. At the end of the day, there are no guarantees, I can assure you, in any business. There just aren't. So asking, how will I know will this work is not a very useful question for you. What I will say to you is that I see it working over and over and over again when consultants work through these but Melissa concerns and when they put a really effective process in place. And so that's what I want to have for you. And then I would encourage you to shift that question from how will I know this will work for my business to how will I make this work? Okay, let's wrap up the episode with two more things. The first is my 5 tips for you on how to maximize the sprint results. The first is front load the sprint. Front load the sprint. If you're doing a 30-day sprint, I would highly recommend front loading by means of, getting people on your calendar. It takes a time for people to get on your calendar. Sometimes you'll reach out and they won't come back for 3 or 4 weeks. So don't expect people to reply immediately. Don't expect that one touch point will get them on your calendar. Of course, that will happen, but it's not the norm. So front load all of this. If your goal is to talk to 50 people and you need to reach out to 80, then I would recommend doing 40 the first week and 40 the second. So you can really fill up your calendar and not worry so much about getting people on the calendar. The second is prioritizing this. Again, you are a business owner. Time block this time for your sprint, including the prep, including the calls, including the scheduling of the calls. including the follow-up of the calls. The third component is aligning your mindset. So overcoming all of those but Melissas we just talked about, things like I'm figuring out how to make this work, not will this work for me. It's possible that I'll create 10 leads from this. I'm excited to figure out how I'm going to do that. Getting yourself in that headspace, both before the sprint and during the sprint, is incredibly important. The fourth is getting creative on where to meet people. Of course, you can meet people that you know. You can leverage the 5C list that I encourage you to leverage, that framework. You can get introductions from people from your warm network to people you don't yet know. That makes it easier to get people on your calendar. Also, interest groups. Go out to a group, online group, for example. I think Ellie shared one of the groups that she had gone to on her episode. And, that's where she met so many people that could be her ideal client or people who know her ideal client. So get really creative. Ask yourself, where are my ideal clients hanging out? Might not be literally hanging out, but what are they reading? What are they watching? Where are they congregating? Who do they trust? And finding ways to get in front of them, because someone or some organization has already amassed your ideal client. So that can be a great way to accelerate the sprint, I should say. And then finally, evaluate. This is not a pass fail process. This is not a process where you're good at it from the very beginning. Most likely, you're not going to be that great at it, but it's an evolution. And so you want to have an evaluation process in place so that you can constantly learn from what's happening and not just brush something off. Oh, that conversation didn't go that well. I guess I'll try better next time. And then you just kind of, try to forget about it and hope for the best, versus having a very formal evaluation process where you ask yourself highly valuable questions to figure out what went well with your conversation and what you want to adjust moving forward. And so that you're in this testing mindset. So those are the 5 primary ways that you can leverage to maximize your sprint results. Now let's wrap up today's episode with what I told you would be hopefully an exciting idea for you to put this into action. Of course, you can go do this on your own. If you want to do this on your own, go choose a date and commit to it and put the techniques that I shared today into action. But if you want to do this with other consultants and with my support, I have a new offering to share with you today, which is called the Consultants Pipeline Sprint. This is where we're doing a sprint to fill your pipeline, and we're doing it all together so that not only are you getting the benefit of me and the specific step-by-step of how to do a consulting sprint. I just shared with you the highlights. This is step-by-step of exactly how to do an effective sprint, what not to do so that you make the most of the time and energy that you're investing in this, and also to be part of a group of other consultants doing this at the same time to help you create that momentum for yourself. So if it's something that you're interested in considering, the sprint will start on September 22nd. For anyone who is ready to commit to the sprint, I would highly recommend that you go look at the details. You can find them at icaccelerator.com. The 2 letters IC for independent consultant, accelerator.com. We'll put the link in the show notes, and you can go see all the details around this. But the sooner you sign up, so the first sign up that you'll be able to do is today, September 11th. You can go sign up and you'll get access immediately to the foundational videos. So you can start putting those prerequisites in place and be ready to hit the ground running on September 22nd, that week of September 22nd, I should say, when we all start this sprint together. So again, go to icaccelerator.com. and you can see all the details and enroll from there. And I look forward to having you join us on this sprint. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again next week. Take care.
Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melisaliberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.